think, I mean, just looking at it through a couple ethical questions that we have that we can talk about really quickly, I think, you know, the question that I wrote down on here is how do we present ourselves as credible, or how do we understand what is credible? And I think a lot of that does come down to ethics, a question of ethics. But what do I mean when I say ethics? You know, ethics is a big, you know, there's from the great Roman and Greek philosophers all the way through. So how does this fit into journalism ethics? Well, I think a lot of it is about, you know, a code of conduct. I think that's a pretty simple, grassroots, basic foundation that we can all work off of. So, for example, you know, does the news organization that you're reading a story from, do they have a code of conduct? What is their promise to you as a reader? That they're going to be fair, you know, transparent, and take their people seriously? Do they, you know, project certain political biases? Is that there or is that not? I think these are some of the informative questions that we really need to ask ourselves when we're evaluating the credibility of the news sources that we're consuming. The second part of that is there's also an interesting, I work with the National News Media Council. So what we are is we're I represent about 500 news organizations across the country, you know, from all points in between. And what we do is we sort of try to act as a certification for news organizations. So what happens is, you know, we take complaints from readers. And a lot of the time we get complaints about, you know, outlets like the Post-Millennial or you know, this guy's website or whatever. And so the question is, you know, what are these people's promises to the audience? And in a lot of cases, you know, these news organizations, you know, they want to join the News Media Council because they see that there's a value in that and a promise to saying, you know, here's what our ethical codes are and codes of practice are, and we'll meet those standards or exceed them. And if we don't, then, you know, we'll be held to account for those if they fall short of it. So I think that there's some interesting value in that to understand for news organizations nowadays to express themselves in that way and to show that, you know, that they are committed to doing the best and doing no harm in a lot of cases, because that's, I think, a core principle of what journalism should be doing. I'll include this in the package that gets distributed with the presentations, the two presentations, but also I'd like you to take a look at some of the ethical codes, you know, and where do you find ethical codes? You know, there's, you know, the Globe and Mail, for example, has their own ethical code. The Toronto Star has their own code of conduct, but there are some other overarching codes of conduct as well that are worthwhile. You know, the Online News Association has a code of conduct that, you know, a news organization can very easily adopt and say, this is the standard that we're going to hold ourselves to. The Canadian Association of Journalists is another organization that has a code of conduct that a lot of organizations, maybe that if they don't have an explicit code that they put on their website themselves, that they say, well, that's the default, so we're willing to adopt that because we believe that it's been put through a test to hold up to a certain organization. The other thing you could do is you can also call me. As the Media Council, we also provide pre-publication support and advice to people. So in a lot of ways that can help, you know, like it was saying that if you're a small news organization or an independent journalist and you don't have the resources to put all your stuff through the ringer, and if you're not sure about how to approach a source or you know, should you quote that source, or, you know, you got this sort of, you know, brown envelope and it had all these really interesting documents in it, but you don't know who it came from. You know, these are all questions that I think that you know, are best figured out in groups and having a discussion about. So I think that that's something that I'd propose to you as being a resource. So feel free to use me in any way that you see fit to advance your own journalism, whether you're an independent freelancer, student, or working with a main newsroom, major newsroom, or not. So I think overall, I mean, I just want to thank everybody for coming today. I think that we had some really great discussions today, from Susanna Ava, and you know, just some of the discussions that I was privy to as well, just in having coffee and chatting, I can tell that there's I'm encouraged, and I don't think that happens a lot or enough in journalism, that, you know, just listening to people with good intentions and who want to see change happen. And I think that that's where it starts, is it very much at the individual level, because there is a lot of change that does need to happen. And I think also the opportunity to share stories from your own communities is something else that is an opportunity for you to do through New Canadian Media, for example. Marcus, who's one of the editors, is sitting in the back there. He's invaluable in terms of putting through and doing copy edits and everything. But I think what New Canadian Media wants through this is, you know, we want to get more stories. We want to, you know, broaden the umbrella, to sound like, you know, a politician of some sort, you know, but to get in touch with more stories from different communities, because there's an outlet there. So even if you don't work for a major news outlet, or you just have a really interesting idea of something that's relevant to you, or, you know, some people in your neighborhood or your community, you know, write a pitch, write up a simple couple sentences. And if you aren't sure how to do that, or you need some help, contact me too. I'll walk you through it, and I'll tell you how to put the pieces together, so that you can have a story that you can publish as well. Marcus, do you have any other points about the collective that you wanted to highlight?
Has a collective. The collective is a group of journalists and people who work within the media in different capacity. Like, there are publishers, there are web design people, there are journalists, obviously. And the main mission of New Canadian Media is to give a voice to either people that are immigrants to Canada, second generation immigrants, people who are just a part of different ethnic groups, and providing a voice for that community, giving a perspective that isn't the one that's coming through the mainstream media, because more often than not, these representations are inaccurate, and often they just increase and reinforce stereotypes. So being able to control your own narrative, give a perspective from that community, and also to talk about issues that are facing that community specifically. Like, I wrote an article yesterday or the day before that about the Justin Trudeau incident. And then one of the other benefits of being a part of the collective is a lot of the collective is based in Toronto, just because Toronto is large. But we do have people all over the country. There are people in Nova Scotia, Halifax, Winnipeg, Vancouver. And so it's a way for you to connect with journalists across the country, and then also to kind of be more in tune with some of the issues that are affecting different communities in different parts of the country.
Thanks, that's great. So just before we wrap up, I guess I'd be curious to know if anybody has any final questions or thoughts about what we discussed today. You know, do you guys feel like you got something useful out of this? You know, do you feel equipped to maybe go out and fact check something and maybe turn it into a story? Do you have any thoughts, anything? Sir, yes. Yes. Yeah, go ahead.
My thought is just very simple. I've learned a lot from here today, but I think it's very important for all of us to go with things. We can sit here all night, we can discuss ethics, codes, and whatever you know. I think it's very, very important now to begin to look at media literacy and a very compelling imperative to rally the world to understand the sociological aspects of who really are following the media. I think a lot of things are spiraling out of control because of the advent of digital media. You have Twitter, you have this Instagram, and Facebook, and all of that, and everybody just wakes up suddenly and they become journalists. So how do you bring ethics to bear? How do you bring quotes to bear? How do you regulate these things? is it just going to remain elitist? Is it just going to remain within the cocoon of real professional practitioners of these? How do you control a man who has 43 million followership? I think that's, how much is Donald Trump's followership now in the US?
I don't follow him, so I
unfortunately, so that's the thing. That's the thing. So because a lot of us are knowledgeable, we say, oh, what's he writing? You know? But it's shaping opinion. It's driving narratives. A lot of people are following, they're listening to it, and they think, oh, that's true, the president has said. So I appreciate what we're doing. We keep learning, we keep following this curve, but I think there has to be a completely holistic approach to how we save the world from toxic narratives.
I would say that in a lot of ways, how do you determine between who's a journalist and who's not? And then in many quarters, that's a very thorny discussion because, journalists aren't regulated. In Canada, you don't get a press card saying, now you are a journalist, like you're a doctor, lawyer, physiotherapist, whatever, any of those accredited professions. So it is hard, but I think in a lot of ways it does come back to some of the things that we've talked about today, as well as the overriding, what your commitment is and what your promise is and what your the values that you espouse. How do you treat your sources, and some of those kind of things that you go through? What is your objective in putting this information out there? Are you looking to do it for political gain, or are you looking to do it because the public should know about it? And so in a lot of ways I see ethics as a cost. It's part of the cost. You can say you're a journalist, and that comes with a lot of lovely cachet for a lot of people, but what are the costs as well? And I think that maintaining a good ethical behavior and standards are part of that. But your point is very well taken. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just wanted to expand on that point. I think where the issue lies is responsibility.
Thanks.
Igor,
Sorry,
I'll see you later.
I have to come to
It's okay.
about an hour.
Igor brought up a point early. Sorry, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
So Igor brought up a point, he runs a website, he's a publisher, he doesn't, he wouldn't approve of those ads Susanna was talking about earlier. But, how many journalists or people who claim they're journalists would have that same morality and responsibility that Igor has? And I think that's where the world is failing. People just don't care. You get more money promoting an ad about Jagmeet Singh's $5 million house. But that ruins his image in a sense because no one really cares.
Yeah, no, I think what news organizations could do a heck of a lot better, or really should devote more effort into, is telling their own story. Journalists are professional storytellers. You go out and I tell your story, you tell mine, vice versa. But what is the news organization and what is journalism's story? I don't think we've written that as well as we could have for an industry that is focused on storytelling. I think that's coming along. You see, through different columns or media criticism or different editorials or explainers on or Hollywood films in a lot of cases. So, and I think that there is interest in that. So it's about how do you express your story about what you're trying to do, and why you're doing it on behalf of the public and the kind of thing the change you're trying to create. So, last question.
I'm sorry.
I'm just going to guilt you into standing there a little longer. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, I have a question. You said the national news media council used to attend some complaints from the readers.
Absolutely, yes.
And in the context of the fake news, what the council do if someone calls and says, that is a fake news, that media is publishing that information that is fake, and what the council
Well,
does?
there's two ways. One, it would depend if which publication it's coming from. If it's just coming from, Joe's blog, that's not really something we can handle. If it's coming from another news organization that's a member, that's something we can look into, and we can go through the judgment process. Now, again, it's not instantaneous, but I think that reinforces the importance of due process, because we don't just want to always pick people up and throw them to the wolves whenever somebody might make a small error. At the same time, though, there is calling out what it is and telling people what it is. And so if it's something that we would be able to see that is disinformation or whatever, I think that there's a complete opportunity to say that this is clearly not accurate. And I think that a lot of the news organizations who are members of the council would take that upon themselves to call out as well. Just like, the CBC was what Susanna was saying before, about, bad math or, dog whistle politics or anything like that. I think that those do, fit cross the threshold.
Brent, before
Yeah.
we say our goodbyes, I forgot to acknowledge that the presentation, even though we didn't really get to it, but if you access it afterwards, was created by Amira Al-Gawabi and myself. She is Ottawa-based and couldn't be here at the end of the day. And so I do want to acknowledge, you'll see her name on the presentation. We did work on it together, and I know she was looking forward to hearing how the discussion went today. So, and both of us, I know you left, I think, your contact info, and those are our Twitter handles, and follow us. And yeah, so I just wanted to, I should have said that at the beginning, but anyhow, just to throw.
Amira, a round of applause.
Yeah. Yes.